Good afternoon and welcome to the NSB Professionals. My name is John Thomas. I am the founding director emeritus of the NSB's Healthcare Innovation Group, and we would like to extend our warmest welcome and appreciation for your interest and joining us in today's HiSig presentation in partnership with the National Science Foundation. It is my pleasure.
Are you there?
It is my pleasure to be able to introduce the content against our convention theme, Engineering Excellence, the Year of the Black Woman.
Hey, John. John, are you able to see my screen and stuff? I can't, like, I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think I can see the
Sorry.
engineering excellence. Yeah, I can see the next slides.
As a quick couple of housekeeping items, we ask that you kindly mute your audio and eliminate your video, as well as feel free to use the chat feature to introduce any questions you might have. And I'm happy to introduce the Healthcare Innovation Team. Specifically, our mission is to promote the development and implementation of innovations that will improve diagnosis and prevent injury as well as illness and disease. Our vision is to be the most trusted ecosystem for technical expertise and solutions to complex healthcare problems impacting the Black community. The Healthcare Innovation Group achieves our mission by executing our CARE strategy, where CARE is an acronym for connecting, advancing, recruiting, and retaining, as well as educating and exposing our members. Through the connection, we help to connect members interested in healthcare innovation with professionals in academia, government, and industry for mentorship, professional development, and career opportunities. The advance component of the CARE strategy really seeks to advance healthcare innovations through research, development, and commercialization. The recruiting and retaining component of our strategy involves ensuring NSB members interested in healthcare and innovation are in fact actively engaged and retained within corporate, academia, or government. And finally, the educate and expose really seeks to give members opportunity and Black community access and exposure to healthcare disparities, innovations, and careers. With great excitement, the HiSig leadership team has been strategically building our footprints in the biomedical engineering states and healthcare hotbeds, and have really enjoyed exponential increase in membership of over 600% that you've seen in the last slide, and a healthy ecosystem across the continental US and global chapters. It is my pleasure to introduce the subject of our talk today, current innovations in the world of biosciences, how a Black woman fits in. This presentation was made possible by our partnership and the kind and generous support of the National Science Foundation, who really sought forward to realize invention to impact. Dr. Peter Atherton, our NSB champion at the NSF, is really leading the partnership effort forward, and you as a NSB professional will get exposure to some of the programs specifically that NSF partnership offers to realize your full potential. And the NSF supports all areas of science and engineering, specifically, as you see, across biological sciences, relevant for us, engineering, and the remaining STEM subdisciplines. The National Science Foundation does conduct research in the order of $8 billion of funding, and really helps to translate innovation to commercialization, and with a real focus on translational R&D, moving towards technology translation, partnerships, and impact. The first program that was shared with us is the double IP programs, really America's seed fund programs, and supporting innovation, corporations, and partnerships for innovation. The second program offered through NSF is really in and around small business innovation research, small business and small business technology transfer. The first program is really America's Seed Fund Opportunity, focused on funding high-tech startups and early-stage companies to develop new leading-edge technologies for societal impact. Up to $2 million in R&D funding to develop transformative, deep technology, high-impact innovations, and really provides funds for all technology areas. The Corp's NSF Innovation Program, I will discuss next. It's really for those engineers that have ideas and are interested in translating that towards commercialization. Some of the key questions that this program seeks to support are, what problems does my idea solve for customers? Where does it stand against the competitive landscape? And who would effectively purchase the idea? The I-Course program through the NSF really helps to understand how to translate fundamental research to the marketplace, train NSF-funded faculty, students, and other researchers in entrepreneurship skills, help researchers gain valuable insight into starting a business and industry's requirements and challenges in and around if your vision is an M&A path of merger and acquisitions. The final program that the NSF offers is the Partnerships for Innovation program. The Partnerships for Innovation program really looks to support researchers with a history of successful funding awards through the NSF and enable those researchers to advance that research towards the commercialization marketplace, really taking items from ideation, research and development perspective into building functional prototypes. The program does not require formation of a small business as a requirement and is open to any technology area covered by NSF. For further information on the program, we've included Dr. Atherton's contact information to be able to explore the ideas further. And we're happy also to make direct introductions to advance those interests aligned with the C in our care, as well as the A in the advance of the high-stakes care strategy. Now, with great excitement, I am happy to introduce our keynote speaker for the high-stakes PDC presentation, Ms. Charity Ogunsanya.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be a speaker to present this very critical topic that, is important to me as a person, as well as to be able to share some of the experiences that I've had, as well as to discuss some key innovations that are important, in the biosciences or biomedical industries, as well as discuss some of the elements of challenges that are normally seen in the industry that we are in at this point in time. So I will try to go through some of the aspects that deals with innovations, as well as talk about the challenges that we'll normally find in the industry. So I'm gonna go down here to my slide presentation on this topic. So we'll go down and talk about some of the four elements that we are going to deal with regards to this topic. We'll talk about some of the history of innovations in the biomedical industry. We will also talk about some of the impactful technological innovations that are created by Black women. We'll talk about some of the challenges that you will encounter as a Black woman, since this topic has to do with the year of a Black woman. So we'll talk about that within the biomedical industry. We will also discuss how Black women can deliver impact in the industry itself. What are the barriers? How can you break those barriers? And how you overcome a lot of the challenges that you will see. And also the key to successes, because when we talk about challenges, we want to talk about what are the successes that comes after. So what is the history? Talking about history of innovations, there are a lot of innovations out there, but when we talk about biosciences or biomedical industry, we want to deal with some of the key aspects of innovations that applies to this specific area. Some of the key facts you want to know about innovation. There is a lot of people that are out there creating different aspects of inventions that are either scientific or it could be engineering based. And also, you talk about innovations, you talk about some people are doing this based on education that they have, or a lot of experiences that they've gathered in the industry or elsewhere, some of the expertise they have naturally, and sometimes it comes as an opportunity. So you deal with scientists and engineers and all kinds of entrepreneurs and people who are driving this technology. But then you look at it and now bring that back home. When I say bring that back home, we're bringing that back home from being a Black woman. And now evaluate what is the impact, what has been the contributions coming from this group that are critical. So when you talk about US born minorities, the next paragraph there talks about some of the demographics. Let's look at the numbers. What are the numbers? We're talking about people that are impacting innovation. So when you look at it now, calculate what is the percentage of people that are born in the US that are more minorities. We're not talking about Blacks as specific, but minorities. We're talking about 32% of total people who are born in the US are minorities. Then talk about percentage wise of innovations or innovators within that 32%. You deal with 8%. So that's a small number. Then now break that down into the number of Blacks or African Americans that make up, the total population of the US. You're talking about approximately 13%. Of that 13%, you only have 0.5% of the ones that are US born innovators. I'm talking about Blacks now. So now we have a huge level of number. Disparity is huge here in terms of the percentage of Blacks or African Americans who have not been used properly in terms of the untapped resource. So there is a lot of great promise when we are talking about this element, this group of people, which we are a part of that group of people. So it's very critical to look at that. Then break that down into number of women. Right now we're talking about this is the year of a Black woman. We're dealing with 12% of the total number of people in the US in terms of innovators. In total 12% US innovators are just women. So there's a huge gap in that regard. Now you talk about undergraduate degrees. There are a lot of STEM fields and all these other elements that needs to be tapped under in terms of the number of percentage. Female share of that percentage is also low. We want to be able to look at it now and see what are the problems here. Now we are looking at statistics that tells us there's a huge number of disparity there. So we're dealing with average number of people born, a percentage of people born. Then we're dealing with the Blacks and the minorities and all that stuff. Then you're looking at the woman element of things. Therefore, there's a lot of missing links here. There's a lot of potentials that have not been tapped when you talk about innovations. But regardless, if you compare the US with Europe and other countries, there is also an outperformance. So that means the US is even better in terms of numbers. So now look at it from there's a lot of ethnicity gaps whereby you have businesses, grants. The NIH has a lot of grants, for example. But when you look at the percentage also in terms of grants now, you are dealing with a very low percentage. 2% of grants went to people who are Hispanic heritage in terms of their principal in innovations. Then you think about the number, 0.3% went to Blacks. That's a very low number when you talk about grants as well. Then you have 6.58% going to Asians. So these numbers, I am bringing these numbers out here so you can see that there is a lot of untapped resources. We still have the way to go when we are dealing with innovations and being able to go out there and get something as a Black person. So let's look at some of the impacts. There are some of these impacting women that are Black that have really brought about technical innovations that have helped us in the long run as a country. This is not the all-inclusive list, but this is just pointing out some key people that are women who are important. Alice Ball is an example of, she was a chemist. She actually did the injectable oils. If you remember the leprosy of the 1940s, prior to that, she actually created the oil extract that was used for treatment of that particular disease at that point in time, although there were a lot of things that came up after that that became more treatment or more innovative treatment. But this is a Black woman at the time who did something good. Then you are talking about Dr. Michelle McMurray Heath. She's actually the CEO of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. She is the president and the CEO. She was the first Black person to graduate from Duke's Medical Scientist Training Program, with her MD and PhD. That's a very strong Black woman. She's been working extremely hard and making sure that with her position, she is transforming. She is like the voice of science, in some areas, in terms of bringing out some of the good qualities as a Black woman that you can share and identify yourself as making an impact out in the scientific industry. She turned her beginning. She had a very disastrous beginning, and she then turned it into a very prestigious career. This is like bringing out some of the good in these people, that we can tell that they can bring out the good, the impact that they can make in the industry as a Black woman. Also, another Black woman, Mary Davidson, and her sister, they actually patented several inventions that are too numerous to list here, but one of the most significant one was the sanitary belt that was invented by her, the walker, the tissue holder, those kinds of inventions. They are all kind of Black women that are bringing out some of those positive elements there. Then also Dr. Corbett is another one that is the most recent one that I can actually draw out from this discussion, whereby she was the lead in terms of the coronavirus vaccine, the mRNA 1273, which was the leading candidate at the time coronavirus vaccine process started. She and her team were very at the top of this whole process, and they were able to bring out the good out of that vaccine. And that is exactly what we're benefiting from at this point in time. She's a viral immunologist by training, and she actually used that whole training to work on this pandemic, the vaccine itself. Now we have the COVID-19 vaccine. Her work brought up a lot of good stuff out of those things. There's a lot of people that I can list, in terms of Black women bringing out some good out of innovations, but because we don't have much time to discuss a lot of those elements of who did what, I will be able to at least provide only of these four very great women that are scientists, that are just some examples of the many that we can talk about today. So before we talk about challenges, I want to talk about innovation. When we talk about what are the biomedical elements of innovations that are out there, there's a lot to be tapped out of. But we will talk about the challenges that a Black woman typically will have in the industry. I can give you myself as an example, but in terms of innovations, it just tells us there is a lot of untapped resource in terms of this word biomedical industry or biosciences. There's a lot of innovations. Examples like the biosensors that was brought out. You have the 3D bioprinting process. The gene editing is another part of the process that has been in the biomedical field. You have the targeted cancer cell therapy. You have the HPV vaccine, the stem cell research. There's a lot of different elements that we can keep talking over and over that are out there from an innovation. There is a lot of untapped resources. There's a lot of untapped innovations. So there is a lot of things that are out there from a biomedical industry that needs to be looked at, that we as Black women, we need to come out and do a lot more, to propel. So what are the challenges? A lot of challenges when we talk about Blacks. Generally, there are challenges faced by Blacks because of the fact that there is limited diversity. There is not a lot of things that are actually pushing us in that field of biosciences. Because when you want to count numbers, in terms of statistics of those who are in the industry. So there is a lot of limitation. Not many Black people are out there in terms of being diverse in this industry. That's one of the challenges we have. Okay. Then also you have companies that are recruiting. When you go in and you have your degree in biosciences or biomedical field, and you want to get into the industry, there's going to be a lot of challenge by itself, because they're looking for experienced people. And then you come in, there's not much experience in terms of what we have coming out of school. Now you have to worry about, how do you network? How do you bring out yourself to be recognized, to start even your career in the industry? That's a lot of challenge right there by itself from a recruiting standpoint, because of the fact that you have people, even where as a Black person, you come in, you have challenges by yourself, then you have the networking issues. You don't have a lot of people to network with. In terms of the bubbles out there, no connections, you don't have a lot of connections. And then you have those challenges because companies are now, some of these companies will be filling just without their internal circle. They'll try to get the people that are within their network. So that wider net is missing. There's not a casting of that wider net to capture the critical elements of including Blacks in this whole field of biomedical industry. So then you also have the issue with the bias. There's a lot of bias that comes in when you're reviewing applications. And now some people will look at it, oh, well, they ask you all of these questions from a diversity question. It turns into something else that is a way to screen out. So that's one problem where you have that bias in the industry, some of them, and in some companies whereby you have that bias. So how are you going to break that bias? That's one challenge right there. When you talk about Black people, you got to work hard. There's a lot of hard work, and then the reward that you're getting out of it may not be as much as what is expected. In terms of your output is a whole lot more, and then what you're getting as reward and promotion is not there as much. So there's a lot of challenges in that regard that prevents the movement of Blacks in the corporate ladder climbing up there. It's sometimes challenging. So let's look at it from a Black woman. We talk about just the general challenges that you find in the industry. Again, a Black woman is different. Now you have the gender bias that actually climbs on top of the ethnicity bias, by itself. Being Black is a challenge. Then you have a woman being a woman. It's an obstacle. It's a big obstacle. Women they have a lot of identity issues, a lot of problems that they face, and workplace expectations. That means a woman carries a lot of burden. All right, that's one thing. Then a woman who is not a white woman has her own little burden on top of being a woman. So then you are stacking up three items: being Black, being not a white woman. It becomes a problem in some cases. All right. Then you have all of these other obstacles with childbearing and all these other things that a woman goes through. Becomes more challenging. So how are you going to now navigate? How are you going to get past all of these obstacles? It's like a maze. You have a problem here and there and there. How are you going to now pass through all of these maze and come out of it? So then you're dealing with what we call the double binds, or the lose-lose situation, whereby you're not really winning because you have to now be forced to challenge yourself to do a lot more. So now you're dealing with social identities and all of those biases that are affecting you as a woman and as a Black woman. So it is very sometimes depressing, because when you look at it, the expectations that are being being put on your shoulders is higher. Then you look at the men. Men are looked at completely different in the workplace. That is true. White women have their challenges, but being a Black woman, it has your own set of challenges, because the expectation for men is they are regarded as like the people who actually can do the work, or the people who are very capable of doing it. So they look at them as that natural leaders. You are looked at as a different person. As a woman, you're looked at differently. Both Black and white were completely looked at differently on two different levels. Then being a white woman, there's a stereotype that a white woman is kind of pleasing, caring, differential. They don't really, they're not looked at as the stubborn person who is assertive. That's exactly the kind of eyes that they look at in terms of being a Black woman. That's how we are looked at. That's the perception that is given, that we are challenging, we are assertive, we are kind of unlikable, or we have that, like as if we're fighting, we're going to be there to create some problems, so angry attitude. They look at us completely different, and that is true. But again, we know these things. We know that they are there. We know we're going to encounter them. All right. So when you deal with that whole precarious situation, a Black woman has challenges on top of the challenges of being a woman. She has her own challenge. How do you now bring all of those challenges that you have from an ethnicity, sexual identity, your age as a woman, also motherhood status is another thing that we all face, the race that you're in? That is a lot of challenges that has to do with hopefully not pulling you back. But then we have to think, all right, you are going to face different obstacles in your career. You're going to see challenges especially in a technological environment whereby you have a biotechnology industry, or you have other types of industries that you're working with. So if you look at this report, there was a study that actually was brought up in 2015 by Liftstream. It's a UK life sciences executive search firm. They did some sort of a statistical evaluation about the San Diego has a lot of biotech companies. The average is about 56 years old. There's a lot of barriers that are there for Black people that are actually keeping us out of the industry, because it starts from the early stages of our life. Based on this study, it showed that the Black and Latino school students sometimes, or in a very few times, they have teachers who look like them. You have a whole different perception starting from when they are young, or when we are young as Black people and Black young people. There is also that perception. Also, there is no role models. There are no really good role models that can show us, teach us what we should be doing, when you don't have somebody who actually look like you to guide you through the process from the early start. That is the point of securing your foundation in the biomedical industry, or even in the biosciences industry. When you don't have that mentorship, there's lack of mentorship, no role models. It's a lot of obstacles that it's not helping us when we don't have that. So also having that guidance to show you, what subjects are you going to take? What are you going to be doing to succeed is there as a Black person as well. Starting from when you started, this is all research. All right. Lack of adequate social and professional network connections is not there. When you don't have good connections from people like you who can help you, then it's a barrier that actually pulls you back. You don't have somebody to lean to. Sometimes through networking, that's how we gain friends in the industry. That's how we gain connections that can help us both in our career fields and moving us up the ladder, within the industry. Because I've seen people who don't have the brains, they don't have the abilities, and you have the brains, you have the abilities, but yet you're not being recognized. You're not being given higher responsibilities, or you can be given higher responsibilities, but you're not being promoted. So that is a challenge right there. Lack of inclusion is another one. We're not being included. We're not being accepted at this point in time. There's a lot of social perceptions about Black women, or even Blacks in general. So those are some of the very early challenges that we see in the industry and that we have gone through, that sometimes is becoming an obstacle by itself. So how are you going to overcome these things? Because that is important. You see all of these challenges. Don't ever get down. You have to stand up and work on it. So you're going to now see that there is no mentorship. You may not get that mentorship directly from somebody else. All right. You are going to now do your own self-initiation. Some people will reach out to other people and find mentors that can help them, to give them some guidance. All right. It's never too late to do that. We don't have to start. We have to start from when we're little in terms of in the career that we're in. But if we can't get it at that time, it's never too late to dust yourself and stand upright and start looking for a mentor that can guide you, that can give you some sort of a direction if you don't have one. So now also you have to now double your expertise. I use this word, expanding your expertise. The reason why I use that word is I am a living example of that. When I started my career in the industry, I started learning from the start. I did not care if you taught me anything. I will go to the next lab and I will learn something that person is learning. Even where I was not given a task to perform, I expanded my expertise. I moved from company to company. If you don't promote me here, guess what? I go to the next company that has another higher opening. That's exactly, and I made sure that I gathered my hands-on experience, I gathered my managerial experience, and I gathered my director level experience. I went to the next company who wanted me, and if you don't promote me there, I do my best. I make sure I make my mark. Then I go to the next company that has a higher position. So you are going to expand your expertise and work aggressively to get there. Your ethics, your work ethics has to match it. You're going to work extra hard. as a Black woman, you're going to stand upright. You're going to do 3-4 times as hard the work entails for you to do. That's what I do even right now as a consultant. Where everybody else is doing their little thing, I will do my double, my triple efforts. That's exactly what is expected. All right. Sometimes it will yield fruits, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't bother me. I still will do my best, work extra hard. Your work ethics, you're going to double it. Your creativity, you're going to be very creative because you want to stand out. You want to make sure that you're part of the team. You want to create that leadership skills. You want to make sure that your output is very unique. It comes out from the rest. When you are in a project and you have 4 people doing it, you're going to make sure that you are the best out of that 4 people. You're going to have continuous learning and development. And I tell people, we're not too old to learn. In as much as I speak on seminars and webinars and I give speeches, I always learn every day. I learn from the people I teach. I learn from the people I mentor. I mentor people. I work with them. So we're never too old to learn. We're going to read and continue to uplift ourselves by creating that space to learn more. We're going to look at things that are out there that will help us to enhance ourselves and our skills. We're going to also go beyond, above and beyond. Go above and beyond your expectations at work. Don't do the same thing everybody is doing. You're going to rise up as a Black woman and do completely different in terms of your level. Where you lack guidance, because sometimes you're going to find that in the biomedical career, right? You're going to now pursue your own way to do your research. You can Google things, you can go out there, you can attend conferences to be able to see what is out there, what is important, what is going to help you in your career, what is going to help you to improve yourself. There are conferences that you have to attend from your workplace. Do that, request for that, expand your skills in the industry, do your master's program if you have to. There's going to be a lot of dedication and resilience. Dedication to duty is so critical. Dedication, resilience, they go together. You're going to be strong. You're going to stick out and you're going to say, yes, I can do it. That's exactly how you work with it. Then you must have focus, not just by hard work. Focus is important. You must be organized, focused, and you must show those leadership qualities that are going to be unique, that people will see and say, yes, this is a leader. And that is how, if you look at some of the history of some of these successful people, successful Black people, successful Black women, there's a lot of qualities that are out there that are important to follow. Communication is important. How you communicate and how dependable you are using good judgment will help you overcome a lot of these aspects of the woman that is a Black woman within the industry. So how are you going to impact? You're going to impact within the industry. A lot of work is needed. Resilience. I tell people, in a simple term, you want to make sure that to succeed as a Black woman, you must be resilient. Then you must have to build relationships. It is important. They do not go separate ways. They are together. Resilience is critical, whereby there is what we call the emotional intelligence. You have to curb your emotion. You need to have that focus. You need to be determined. You need to know where you're going. You need to be able to guard yourself and say, yes, I can make it. I will be able to make it. Nothing stops me. Nothing will prevent me from succeeding. Nothing will prevent me from having a separate path. Nobody can tell me to do something completely different than what I think is appropriate for my life. How am I going to make an impact to the world? How am I going to make an impact to my industry? Those are the things you're going to be thinking about. Those are the things you're going to be working about. So don't let anybody bring you down by trying to knock you down and tell you can't make it, you can't do it. That's not true. You can do it. You will succeed in doing it. As long as you have that determination to succeed, you curtail yourself. You don't care what they look at you. You don't care whether you are either promoted or not promoted. You're going to promote yourself. Like I said, I'm an example. You don't promote me, I come in, I do a lot of hard work. I've done it in the industry, my 30 years, done it in the industry. Lots of companies will call me, 4 or 5 of them. They want me to come make all the changes, which is what I do, remediation. I fix all their problems. I set up systems, processes, SOPs, and all kinds of things that I need to set up. I make an impact. I grow their business. Guess what? When it's time for promotion, I'm not there. Thank you. Guess what? Next company. That's exactly how I did it. So your emotions, don't let anybody bring you down and allow your emotions to pull you away. No. Secondly, you have to be very authentic. You should be yourself. You must be determined to be yourself, and you're not going to look at what other people are doing and try to copy them. You're going to copy the good stuff, but you're not going to just copy them just because you want to copy them. You want to be true to yourself. That is where you have to be very authentic. All right. Agility. You must have that strength, that energy, that hard work, that whole thing that you want to bring to the table that makes you the best person to make that change. That is where the agility comes in. You're not going to be weak. You're not going to walk in an environment that is already set up for you and be content. No, you must have the energy, the strength, the hard work to move the needle to the level that brings your name out there to succeed for yourself. After you succeed for yourself, you're going to succeed for the company at the same time. But count yourself as the most important person in that industry that you are making a great impact. That's how you stand out. You are going to build relationships, all right? Relationships are very critical in the sense that when you build relationships, some people have excellent technical knowledge, but they don't know how to be professional. They don't know how to speak to people. They don't know how to curtail their mouth. They don't know how to address people. They don't know how to work as a team. You don't know how to have an outreach, like reach out to people, make yourself available, build that relationship, network. Those are the things that are going to create some sort of a balancing act. I've had consultants that work for my organization, for my firm. Some of them have very good technical knowledge, and some of them, they have the technical knowledge, but they don't have the attitude. They don't know how to build relationships. You can't do that. You can't have that. You have to have the combination. So you got to pull those people in and let them build that aspect of their life. And as a Black woman, we are going to remain strong. It is important to be strong. It is important because you're going to see a lot of things that will pull you down, or people that will try to pull you down, people that will try to make up stories. After you have put in a lot of effort, you've done your best, they will work against you. Sometimes we've seen all kinds of stuff in the industries, but it doesn't matter. It should not shake you. You must not be shaken by any situation, any innuendos that people have. All right. You must have that resilience to move forward. So you must be strong. You must be able to bring in your impact to the industry. There's a lot of things that are out there in the industry that you can make an impact. There's a lot of areas of expertise that you can bring in your expertise and be able to show an impact, make an impact, and continue to build yourself so that you can get to the higher level and become a very strong building block and a foundation. And also not just the low numbers we have right now in the biomedical industry as a Black woman innovator or contributor, but we want to increase that number so that by the time we have the 2025s, we have that increased number of Blacks and Black women within the biomedical industry. So resilience, we've talked about those three key aspects. Being a Black woman, we need to work together, we need to be strong, and we need to make that difference. That brings me to the end of the discussion on this very critical topic. I wish we had more time, but I am happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jeremy, for a thorough and thought-provoking presentation. We appreciate your sharing your experiences and your guidance, and we'll now open the floor by way of the Q&A chat for any questions before adjournment.
So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
it doesn't seem like we have any questions. And we're at the top of the hour. So on behalf of the National Society of Black Engineers and the Healthcare Innovation Specialist,
I think your mic is cracking. Your mic is cracking a little bit.
Thank you, Jerry. It doesn't look like we have any questions via the chat feature. So on behalf of the National Society of Black Engineers and the Healthcare Innovation team, thank you for taking the time to share again your experiences in the studies therein, and certainly the professionals for joining and participating in the session. You enjoy the rest of the conference.
It's cracking.
And wish you the best success.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for attending today's session. It is a pleasure to have presented. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully, you enjoy the rest of the conference.